Hello and welcome back to Scandinavian Design 101. I'm Sanna.
I'm Andreas, and we're two Swedes and we love design.
Yes, we do. And today we're going to talk about a classic Swedish mid-century chair produced by Edsbyverken, Fanett. It's often sold at auction and by different dealers around the world, attributed to the Finnish designer Ilmari Tapiovaara. That's correct,
That's
right?
correct.
But that's not the whole truth.
No.
In fact, it's not just one chair, but a whole range of chairs and tabarets. In this video, we're going to tell you the story behind Fanett.
The manufacturer Edsbyverken was founded already in 1899, it's a long time ago, in the very small town of Edsbyn in Hälsingland in central Sweden. And from the start, the company produced wooden furniture, but soon also became the biggest producer of wooden skis in Sweden. And the company still exists, nowadays specialized in the production of office furniture.
Firstly, who was Ilmari Tapiovaara? Well, he was a Finnish designer and interior architect born in 1914. He studied to become an architect in Finland, and after graduating in 1937, he traveled to France to attend the World's Fair. During the stay in France, he got an assistant position for 6 months at the office of no one less than Le Corbusier. As a furniture designer, he was highly influenced by the Aalto couple, and he came to establish an architect office of his own in Finland in 1951.
Yes, and now to the Fanett chair. It all started back in 1949 when the designer Lennart Karlstorp decided to modernize the traditional wooden chairs produced by Edsbyverken. He saw two main issues: the weight of the chair and the large amount of wood needed in the production. He soon realized that the problem had to do with the construction of the seat. A thick wooden seat was both heavy and expensive to produce. A molded plywood seat would be a good solution, but Edsbyverken lacked the experience needed, which meant that Karlstorp had to start from scratch. The craft of molding plywood was luckily far from unknown in Sweden at the time, and during the Second World War the technique had been refined, not least by the Navy and Air Force. All wooden fighter plane J-22 had been developed, and the whole of the plane had been produced by furniture companies like Svenska Möbelfabriken in Bodafors and also Nordiska Kompaniet, I think.
With a lot of help from Carl Hedman, a skilled technician at Edsbyverken, Lennart Karlstorp constructed a plaster mold for the new seat, and in October of 1949 they managed to construct the first successful full-scale prototype of the new chair. But the project could have ended in disaster, because one of the prototype molds exploded, causing a lot of damage, of course, but luckily no one was seriously injured. The problems behind the explosions were solved, and soon Edsbyverken started producing their new molded plywood chair. The first model was put in production in the winter of 1949. It was a kind of Windsor chair with a bow-shaped back with 4 wooden dowels in the middle and a thin plywood seat, giving it a modern look. It was named Fanett by the marketing department at Edsbyverken, and it was an immediate success. In other words, this first Fanett chair was designed by Lennart Karlstorp and no one else.
Yeah. And in the mid-50s, Edsbyverken came in contact with a young Finnish designer, Ilmari Tapiovaara. And he visited the factory in Edsbyn and was soon hired to design some furniture for the company. And one of the assignments was to redesign the back of the Fanett chair. The new chair was ready in 1955 and was called Fanett 55T. And the legs and seat wasn't changed except when it came to dimensions. The plywood seat was made wider, giving the chair a more powerful expression and somewhat more modern look.
For larger asses.
Yeah, that too. And big changes were then made to the backrest. Instead of a bow, Tapiovaara used 6 wooden dowels held together in the top by a horizontal crossbar. And Tapiovaara was given a small sum of money for the job, but no royalties, because Fanett was considered to be the work of Lennart Karlstorp. And when selling old T55 shares, the honest thing to do is to attribute them to Tapiovaara and Karlstorp together, I think. It was indeed a collaboration and absolutely not the work by Tapiovaara alone.
Soon after the 55T reached the market, a matching tabaret was designed by Lennart Karlstorp. It had a square plywood seat and was simply called Fanett Pall, Fanett Tabaret.
Yeah, that's logical. And the redesign of Fanett was a beautiful chair, yet not very successful commercially. It had some flaws that made customers quite annoyed. The biggest issue was the wide seat. It was almost impossible to place 4 chairs around the standard-sized dining table. And something had to be done about this, and in 1960 Lennart Karlstorp was asked to yet again redesign the chair. First he made the seat narrower, pleasing many of the dissatisfied customers. As a next step, he changed the back, giving it 7 dowels instead of 6, probably in an effort to make the chair sturdier. The new chair was finished in late 1967 or early 1968 and was given the name Fanett 65T. And Tapiovaara was not involved in this redesign, and the new chair was the work by Lennart Karlstorp alone.
But why was there a T then?
I'm not sure. I think they wanted a model number recognizable for the customers who used to buy this 55T. Probably. No, and we asked some old people at Edsbyverken when we were there a couple of years ago, when they didn't really know.
Well, parallel with the chairs we have mentioned, Edsbyverken produced some other models of Fanett with different backrests. Most common is the brick chair produced in the late 50s and early 60s. It looks a lot like the original prototype developed by Karlstorp in 1949, and according to former employees at Edsbyverken, it was designed by a group of workers at the factory. For many years, the production of Fanett chairs was highly successful in Edsbyn, and in the mid-60s, more than 1,000 chairs were produced per day in the factory. The era ended in 1970 when Edsbyverken suddenly stopped producing chairs and sold the machinery to a factory in Czechoslovakia. By then, more than 3 million Fanett chairs had been produced.
Yeah, that's a lot of chairs. And to make things clear now, Fanett was the work by Lennart Karlstorp, and Ilmari Tapiovaara was only involved in the redesign of the 55T version, the one with 6 dowels in the back. All other versions should be attributed to Karlstorp alone.
Yeah.
And I do think that Karlstorp and Tapiovaara should be attributed to this 55T.
Together.
Yeah. And yeah, this was our video about the Fanett chair. And I hope you liked it.
Hope you learned something. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's true. And if you liked the video, you could perhaps click a thumbs up and subscribe.
You have done that already.
Yeah, and follow us on Instagram. We are called Scandinavian Design 101, and we have daily posts about Scandinavian and modern design.
Yeah.
Thank
you for watching.
Thanks.